Let's dive into the line widget in the custom dashboarding solution in Coralogix. So I'm already on the new dashboard page. I have an empty dashboard here. I go to add widget. I can see line chart here. I can also see lots of other options. We'll explore each of these in turn. With a line chart, you simply drag this in, and you now have a line chart in your graph. You can see I've already set the time range to 90 days. You'll notice a few things here. So you see, first of all, that the natural query is logs. So there's only one query embedded in this widget. Its type is logs. You can see the source here. If I change that to metrics, that will change to metrics and spans. It will change to spans, and also you see different data. There's like a default query that happens every single time you select a source. In this case, it's essentially just all the spans are counted in this case. So we'll just use logs as a simple example. You also notice this partial data thing here. This is because I've queried the last 90 days, but my retention period is actually a little bit less than that. It's only a week, and you can see the query range is up to 8 days. So it's only showing me part of the data. So this would indicate that maybe nothing was going on. It's not necessarily true. It's that the retention is preventing me from getting any further. So if I select, I don't know, the last 12 hours, for example, that goes away because I've got data for the full time frame here. So that's just in case you do see that. So with line charts, as with all widget types, you can select different different names and descriptions. And when you do that, you'll see that the tooltip updates there. So by selecting the description, you'll see that it'll actually add a nice little tooltip there. So think about that for the usability of your line widget. Now, when you're defining log-based line charts or any charts, you'll use the Lucene query syntax. So for example, you can query on any logs that have the HTTP request IP address field in there, for example. And you'll see that the counts differ now a little bit. So you can see that we now are querying for only the logs where the request IP address is present in them. So that's just a really simple way. However, if you switch to metrics, you'll notice it's no longer Lucene, it's PromQL. So we can select, for example, DB statement latency is quite a nice one. And you can see all of the different SQL queries or Redis queries and what their respective times taken were. This is actually kind of cool. This is a span to metric that's generated from the spans we have around database queries. It's quite nice. So you can see a bunch of different queries here for Redis, and you can see Postgres, and I think there should be a DynamoDB in there as well. You can filter, of course. You can focus on a specific element with using the legend on the right hand side. So if you use logs or spans, then you'll write your query in Lucene. If you use metrics, you'll write your query in PromQL. And as we said in the overview section, you'll always do it in the bottom section here. This is where you'll do all of your coding, your direct querying. On the right hand side here, you'll see you have a lot of different options now. So we'll go back to logs. Firstly, you can select a different aggregation. So right now we're just counting. You could take the min, the max, the average, and so on. Now, let's say, for example, you decide to do the min, you can't do the minimum of a load of logs because minimum is a numerical value. So you'll have to actually select a numerical field. There's lots and lots of different options there. Or just take response status code, for example, and it's 200, which is makes sense. So of all the response status codes we've got, the lowest is 200. That's just one particular example of how you could do that. You could also choose different values around request rate or whatever if it's present on the logs. So you can choose different aggregations based on what you want to see here. We'll go back to count. Now, you can also group by different values as well. So for example, I could say, actually, I want to group by subsystem. And that will show me all the different subsystems. And this is actually quite a nice way of showing activity. If log count equals activity, then you can actually see the activity of each individual service is only a couple of clicks and no need to write any Lucene whatsoever. It's really nice. So this is just a very nice way of visualizing all of that data. Of course, you can also select different data points. So you could have different have like the granularity. So in this particular case, you can see every 3 hours, 4 hours, and so every 5 hours. And if you lower that, it will automatically select different values. Now, really, just leave it at auto. It will make your life a miles easier. It's just if you want to change the granularity, if you don't care about minute by minute or 5 minute by 5 minute granularity, then just set it to whatever you want. But the vast majority of people find that they can just leave it at auto and it'll work very well. Finally, advanced options. So we have different color schemes here. We have the classic. We can set it to severity. Severity colors. We can set it to cold or hot or green. For example, greens might be useful if you can use green to color code for a certain set of applications. You have different reds and blues. So again, just a really nice way of showing different color schemes. It's a good way of making consistent colors within your chart as well. That's a really important thing for usability and clarity and at a glance insight. So you can glance at the chart and see these colors all correlate with one another. Bunch of different options down here as well. You can select what appears in the legend. So I can say, for example, the min, the max, the sum, the average, the last, and so on. Now you'll notice before the aggregation type was count. Now what we're saying is, okay, what are the maximum counts? So that now we have the count, that's our numerical version of last, max, sum, and average. So where before you had to actually select a field in a log, these are the last, max, sum, and average of the count. So that's why you can do these ones without having to select a log field, but you can do it with the aggregation. Now, all of these are a single example, but we can add queries to the line chart as well. You can do this with almost any chart. With the line chart, what you can do is you can select, for example, we have a metric here now. So we have the overall application latency, and we can change the metric. So we'll say DB statement latency metric in there as well, just as an example. And now we can see that we've got one query here, the legend here, grouped by subsystem, and query 2 is grouped by statements. These are totally different data sets that we can superimpose on top of one another. Really, really, really nice actually, because it means that you're able to visualize these problems from multiple different angles. And if you want a nice example of where this is really great actually, we'll show you in a second one of the really nice use cases. We'll just finish off some of this so we can see we've done all the units and that kind of thing. You can also see that you've got different options here on general settings for showing labels, or for grouping by query and so on. You can see here that if we open up, let's say query 1, for example, we go to advanced, you can change the scale of the y-axis. So right now it's linear. If we set that to logarithmic, you'll be able to see that it turns into a logarithmic scale. Logarithmic scales are really powerful when you have very variant data. So some of it's really low and some of it's really high, and you want to be able to see the trends in all of them. However, at a glance, all this data looks relatively comparable, right? Because they're all kind of close to each other. Like these two, this one and this one could be considered quite close, but actually this one is 14,000, this one is 99,000. That's the problem with logarithmic charts, is it kind of kills your ability to view what's going on at a glance. And these ones here, this one's 81,000, this is 999,000. So the further up the graph you get, the more different the data becomes. So if you're going to set a logarithmic y-axis, just be aware that it may take some getting used to and some time getting comfortable with the actual platform before you decide to go with that option. One other thing that we're going to highlight here is if I just move out of this, you can see a bunch of really interesting stuff here. What I can do is I can actually, what I'll do is I'll just remove that second query as well, just because it's makes the graph very difficult to read. So now we can see we've got our graph here grouped by the subsystem. Now, if let's say we pick a sort of longer time frame, let's say 7 days, all sorts of stuff going on here. What I can do is I can say, okay, this is all the data that's coming from my high performance frequent search storage. If I click this button here, what's going to happen is it's going to reach into the customer's archive. Now, archives in Coralogix, as we said in a previous video, are stored in cloud storage in the customer's account. And it's going to produce graphs from that archived data. And this is remarkable because what it means is that not only is your data sat in the archive, it's completely accessible. You can query it directly using our remote query functionality, and now you can visualize it in the dashboard as well. So this is remarkable. It's really powerful because it means you have this huge data set to work with, and it really just opens up what you can do with your archive data. So it's really quite special. So definitely investigate that if you're using this. So we looked at multiple queries before, and I just want to show you a nice example of where this might be really useful. So we have this other dashboard down here called database performance. Now, with the database performance widget, you can see up here that we have performance by query. It's based on spans and metrics. So I have spans that describe the 99th percentile of query latency. I have the medium percentile for these two queries. So one is Postgres and the other one is DynamoDB. However, at the same time, I'm also visualizing the database CPU usage of my Postgres database. And what that's going to do is it means that if I get a spike anywhere if I get a sudden spike in latency here, I wonder if that maybe correlates with the spike in the data. So here, for example, you can see that there's a spike in Postgres CPU and at the same time, roughly, a spike in latency as well. So just a really interesting thing to look into. But this is a really nice example of where completely different data sources, spans and metrics, just superimposed on top of one another, and you can actually get insights that would be difficult to ascertain in other ways, for example, in different widgets or indeed in different dashboards as well. These are just some of the examples that are available as part of the line chart widget, and I'll just show you one more really cool thing that you can do as well. So if we go back, we create a new dashboard, we'll discard the changes that we've made to that, we bring in the line chart. Now what we can do here is, with a line chart and with other charts as well, but this is just a really nice opportunity to show it, is you can actually create different things from this graph. So if I create an alert from this graph, I get this amazing UI that's going to show, okay, right at the top here is 90,000 count. Now, I don't want to have an alarm that's firing when all of this is going on, because this is pretty much uninteresting, right? It's this spike that I'm really interested in. So what I can do is I can say, okay, 89,000. What that's going to do is it's only going to alarm when that gets really, really high. I might want to say, okay, maybe actually that's a bit too specific. We'll do 82,000. So right at the top, and look how clear it is when that alarm is going to fire. This is just a really, really cool example of where the Coralogix UI enables you to not only visualize things based on your dashboard, but also define new alarms based on your dashboard as well. And of course, you can click through this and you get the new alarm setting. It'll all be set automatically with the values that you selected as part of the UI. If you have a query, it will appear here. Any filters by application subsystem will appear here. And you also get like severities and things like that as well. It's really, really nice. So this is just one of the really cool use cases that you've got with the Coralogix custom dashboarding solution. It's not just about visualizing the data, it's about connecting it to the wider platform as well. So that was the line widget. Line widgets are probably the most commonly used widgets that we see in the custom dashboarding solution. Indeed, in almost anyone's dashboarding solution, line charts provide a really nice visualization into time series data. So that's a rundown of the line chart, what it can do, multiple queries, loading data from the archive directly in the UI as part of your dashboard, and defining new alarms. You can also define metrics from the dashboard that you've created as well, which is really, really quite powerful. So hopefully that was useful, and in the next one we'll have a look at some more of the different widgets available. The next one will be about table widget.